Kuzambo. Welcome to Bhutan e-learning program. This is accountancy lesson for key stage 5 on the topic costing, and under the topic costing we have two, that is the store ledger and cost sheet. And the store ledger I have already covered under previous lesson, and for today I am going to talk on the second part, that is the cost sheet. What I have is the lesson objectives. Firstly, understand the concept of cost. Secondly, explain the component of cost. Next we have is state the purpose of cost sheet, and next we have is prepare cost sheet. Okay, before we go to the next point, I am going to cover up the following concepts, that is the meaning of cost, costing, cost accounting, cost accountancy, elements of cost, and cost sheet. And some of the concept I have listed there, it may not be found in the PPT here, but I'll just take you through, because those are also related to the topic that we are going to look at for today. Okay, the first one we have is meaning of cost. Okay, as I have already explained in the previous or in the last lesson, cost refers to, or cost is the measurement of the amount of resources that is required for the production of goods and services, and that has to be expressed in terms of monetary value. So that is meaning of cost. Then we have costing. Costing refers to the technique and the process of ascertaining the cost. Then next we have is cost accounting. Cost accounting and cost accountancy, they are different, and you have to know the slight difference between cost accounting and cost accountancy. First we have is cost accounting. Cost accounting is a process of measuring, analyzing and reporting both financial as well as non-financial information related to the cost of acquiring resources for an organization. So that is what we have with regard to the cost accounting, and at the same time we have is the cost accountancy. So cost accountancy, it is simply the application of cost and cost accounting principles. So that is the meaning of cost accountancy. And we have the elements of cost. Okay, under elements of cost, broadly there are three. They are material cost, labor cost, and expenses, so which we have in detail in the next or in the slides that I have prepared. Okay, then we have also the cost sheet, and cost sheet give you simple meaning. Cost sheet, it is a periodical statement which shows the various components of total cost and cost per unit. So this is what I am going to cover. So now let us look at the definition. Okay, cost is a measurement in monetary terms of the amount of resources used for the purpose of production of goods and rendering services, and manufacturing of goods or rendering services involves consumption of resources. For example, material cost of the price of material consumed for manufacturing a product or for rendering services. So that is the definition. As I have already mentioned, cost is simply the measurement of amount of resources that is required for the production of goods and services. So that is what we have with regard to the meaning and definition of cost, and hope it is clear to you. Okay, the next we have is component of cost, which I have also covered under the store ledger. Anyway, once again, for a reminder, I will take you through. So the first we have is the direct cost, indirect cost, and the direct cost further is categorized as direct material, direct labor, and direct expenses, and all these three constitute, or all these three will become a prime cost. Then the next we have is indirect cost, indirect material, indirect labor, indirect expenses, and all these three will become overheads. And overheads further can be of three kinds, and they are factory overheads, office overheads, selling and distribution overheads, which I have already covered, yet for your reminder. Okay, factory overheads are the overheads which are related with the production of goods and services. Then next we have is office and administrative overheads, the overheads which are related with the general administrative purpose, such as for formulating the plans, for planning and controlling, then for motivating the employees and so on. So these are included under factory overheads. Then finally we have is selling and distribution overheads, the overheads which are related with promoting the sales, which are related with stimulating the demand, securing the orders and retaining the customers. So these are the expenses or the overheads, which means those are indirect expenses which are related with the sales. So therefore they are categorized as selling and distribution overheads. Okay, now we have is components of cost, and as I already told you, components of cost or elements of cost basically are of three, and they are material costs, labor costs and expenses. So first let me take you through material costs. Material costs refers to the cost of commodities that are supplied to an organization. The material costs basically are of two, and they are direct and indirect. Direct material refers to the materials which can be conveniently identified with a certain cost unit. So this is what we call it as direct material costs. Then next we have is indirect material. Indirect materials are those materials which cannot be conveniently identified with a particular or with the individual cost unit. So that is what we call it as indirect materials. Then next we have is the labor costs. Labor cost refers to the cost of remuneration, which is in the form of wages, salaries, then commission, bonus and so on. So again the same labor cost can be also of two kinds, and they are direct and indirect. So direct labor consists of the wages that are paid to the workers who are engaged in converting the raw materials into finished products. The next we have is the indirect labor. Indirect labors are those laborers which cannot be conveniently identified and which are not directly engaged in the production process, but they indeed help or they support or they provide the helping hand in the production process. So that is what we call it as indirect labor. Then finally we have is expenses, and expenses refers to the cost of services other than the material cost and labor cost. They are called as the expenses, and expenses again can be of two kinds, and they are direct expenses and indirect expenses. Direct expenses are those expenses other than direct material and direct labor, and they are called as the direct expenses. And we have indirect also, and indirect expenses again are the expenses other than indirect material and indirect labor. So these are the components of cost, and hope I have made it clear to you. Okay, with this let us switch on to the next. I have given the detail of what I have explained earlier, or what we have looked at a few minutes ago. Direct material cost can be conveniently identified with and allocated to cost unit, and direct material generally become a part of finished product. So which means the direct material has to be a part of finished product. So therefore, okay, it is called as a direct. An example we have is timber in furniture, we have steel in automobiles, we have clothes in garments, we have leather in shoes and so on. So these become an integral part or the main part of the finished product. So therefore they are to be considered as the direct material. Okay, next we have is indirect material. Those materials which cannot be conveniently identified with individual cost unit, such as pins, screws, nut and bolts, thread, coal. Then we have lubricating oils and grease and so on. So these are considered as indirect materials. They do not become a part of finished product, and they are relatively used in a smaller quantities. So therefore they cannot be conveniently identified with a particular cost unit or with an individual cost unit. So that is what we have with regard to the direct material and indirect material. Okay, next we have is the labor cost. Okay, labor cost, as I told you, labor cost refers to the remunerations, the cost of remunerations such as wages, salaries, commission, bonus and so on. So anyway we have two again. Direct labor. Direct labor cost consists of wages paid to the workers directly engaged in converting raw materials into finished product, and these wages can be conveniently identified with a particular product, job or process. So which means the labor who are directly engaged in conversion of raw materials into finished product, and where they can be easily identified with a particular product, job or the process, they are considered as the direct labor. Examples: wages paid to machine operators, we have shoemakers, we have carpenters, weavers, tailors and so on. So those are considered as the direct labor. Depending upon the situation, they are considered as the direct labor. Okay, next we have is indirect labor. It can be conveniently identified with a particular cost unit. In other words, indirect labor is not directly engaged in the production operation, but only to assist or help in the production operations. And examples: we have wages paid to supervisors, inspectors, cleaner, clerk, peon, watchman and so on. Those people, they do not directly contribute to the production process, but without their helping hand, at times the completion of work becomes a question. So therefore their service is also very much required for the completion of the production process. So therefore they indirectly engage in production process, therefore they are called as indirect labor. Okay, hope you are getting me. The last component of cost we have is expenses. Expenses refers to the service cost other than the material cost and labor cost. They are called as expenses. And expenses also we have two kinds, and they are direct expenses and indirect expenses. So first we have is direct expenses, any expenditure other than direct material and direct labor engaged in production process, altering the composition or condition of raw materials in order to produce a product in the manufacturing concern. Example we have is hiring costs, we have carriage inward, and so on. And the next we have is indirect expenses. Indirect expenses includes any expenditure other than indirect materials and indirect labor which cannot be easily identified and allocated to cost unit. And examples we have insurance, tax, then rent, and so on. So these are what we have for the expenses, and hope you are getting the concept of all those that is the components or the elements of cost. Okay, next we have the pictorial presentation. So whatever I have explained or whatever you have looked at in the slides, now I have the pictorial presentation for your better understanding. So in the first case, in the first picture you will see the direct material. See, in case of automobiles, whatever the part that becomes a finished product, you can directly see the steel there. So that is what it is considered as the direct material, and the other examples are also given, you go through. Then in the second case we have is indirect material. See, whatever it is used in a smaller or relatively smaller unit or a small part, and you will just see the lubricating oil, sandpaper, nuts and bolts, they are used in a smaller quantity and they do not become a part of finished product. So that is what you should understand or what you should be getting from the pictorial presentation I have shown over here. The next we have is again the same, that is the labor cost. Now labor cost we have is direct labor and indirect labor. In the first case you will see the mechanics who are directly engaged in assembling the parts of automobiles, so they are considered as the direct labor. So this is what again you have to get the idea from the pictorial presentation I have shown there. And in the second case you will see there is the security guard. So the security guard, he is not directly engaged in the production process, but he is assisting or he is helping or supporting the production process. So there you will see the security guard and he is considered as the indirect labor. So this is what we have. Now the last one we have for the component of cost is the expenses. So again expenses categorized into two, they are direct and indirect. So what you will see in the picture there, the truckload of the logs, they are considered as the direct expenses. If it is for the furniture house, there that becomes the direct expenses. Then you will see the next picture, that is the indirect expenses. Whatever, okay, the rent and the taxes you need to pay, the depreciation, the lighting and power, the advertisement, the insurance, and whatever repairs, those are considered as the indirect. So hope the pictorial presentation has made concept more clearer. Okay, with this we are done with the component of cost. Now let us get into the cost sheet now. The main part for today's lesson is the cost sheet. So cost sheet, as I already told you, cost sheet refers to the periodical statement that shows the components of total cost and cost per unit. And I'll just take you through the slide also. Okay, cost sheet refers to the periodical statement that reflects a detailed overview of the costs incurred in the process of production of goods and services. It is used to determine cost of an object, that is a product, service, or cost per unit. So that is what we have to at least get about cost sheet, and you have to know the purpose of preparing cost sheet also. Down the line I have also mentioned the purpose of preparing cost sheet. Anyway, just to remind you, cost sheet reveals the total cost and cost per unit. It helps us compare the current cost with that of previous cost. It also helps us to know the breakup of total cost into the different elements of cost, and it also helps us in the fixation of selling price. Though the forces of demand and supply is the main forces behind the determination of selling price, yet it also helps or it guides us to fix the selling price, and it basically also helps in the quotation of tenders and so on. So this is what at least we have to get about the cost sheet. As I have already explained the purpose of cost sheet, it reveals the total cost and cost per unit. It shows the breakup of total cost into different elements of cost. It shows the comparison of cost of current period and previous period. The last we have is it helps management in fixation of selling price and quotation of tenders. And don't get confused when I say it helps management in fixation of selling price. Of course, the selling price will be determined by the forces of the demand and supply, yet it helps or it guides or it gives ideas to the management in fixation of the selling price. So these are the purpose of preparing cost sheet. Okay, next we have is the components of cost sheet or the format of cost sheet. So we have to always remember, okay, there are certain parts in the cost sheet. So the first part we start with the direct, that is the components or the elements of cost, which we have already looked at. So which means the first part, it consists of the direct material, direct labor and direct expenses, and this will form the prime cost. And on prime cost we are going to add factory or work overhead. Then the result we will get is the factory cost or work cost. On factory cost and work cost we are going to add office and administrative overheads, and after that the result we will be getting is the cost of production. And on cost of production we are going to add selling and distribution overhead, and the result we will get is the total cost or cost of sales. Then we will get either the result that is profit or loss by comparing the total cost or the cost of sales with that of sales. So just for your kind information, if the total cost or cost of sales is greater than the sales, then the result that we are going to get is the loss. So which means the concern is going to suffer loss. Then if the sales are greater than the total cost of sales, then obviously the result sounds so good, will be the profit. So this is how we determine the result, either profit or loss. So this is the format of cost sheet, and hope you are clear with the format of cost sheet, because while we solve the question, we have to catch hold of the format, and without this the problem solving becomes quite impossible. So we have to remember what are items that are shown under the format of cost sheet. So if the cost sheet format is clear to you, maybe we will look at a practical problem as well. Okay, anyway, before we solve the practical problem, let us get the components in detail. Okay, the first we have is prime cost. So prime cost, as I have already told in my previous lesson also, is the sum total of direct material, direct labor and direct expenses. So prime cost is equal to direct material plus direct labor and direct expenses. Then next we have is the overheads. So overheads are the indirect, whatever expenses, that is indirect material, indirect labor and indirect expenses, all that will constitute and they will become overheads. So overheads is equal to indirect material plus indirect labor and indirect expenses. Okay, then overheads we have basically three, as I have already mentioned before my lesson. So this is what we have. Okay, factory overheads, we have office and administrative overheads, we have selling and distribution overheads. So I have already explained you, I'll just run you through. Anyway, factory overheads are those overheads which are concerned with the production of goods and services. And next we have is office and administrative overheads. They are concerned, or they are the overheads which are related with the general administrative functions, as I told you, example like implementing the policies, then planning and controlling, then motivating the staffs or employees and so on. Okay, next we have is the last one, selling and distribution. Okay, the overheads which are related with promoting the sales, stimulating demand, securing orders and retaining customers. So these are with regard to the overheads. Okay, anyway, you have to remember under prime cost all direct expenses are put in, and under overheads all indirects are being taken into account or are just taken note of. So this is what you have to at least get off, that is the prime cost and overheads. Cost sheet summary we have, I have also mentioned the cost sheet summary. So which means all directs, which means direct material, direct labor and direct expenses will become prime cost. Then prime cost we add factory overhead, and the result we get is the factory cost or work cost, which means it is just the derivation of the format which we have looked at earlier. Okay, then on factory cost we add office and administrative overhead, and the result we get is cost of production. And on cost of production we add selling and distribution overhead, and the result we get is total cost or cost of sales. We also call it as cost of goods sold. So these are the summary of the cost sheet, which is being derived from the format of cost sheet which we have looked at earlier. Okay, with this let us switch on to the next point we have. Okay, next we have is the types of inventories. So in the lesson under the store ledger, we have touched upon the inventories. Basically, you know, inventories are the assets or something which are held by the business primarily for the purpose of sale, for the purpose of resale in the ordinary course of business, which are held by the business for the consumption to produce goods and services. So these are what we have already covered, and for today we are going to look at types of inventories. So types of inventories, basically they are of three. They are inventories of raw materials, inventories of WIP, that is work in progress, and finally we have inventories of finished goods, that is what we also call it as inventories of FG. So anyway, let me take you through one by one, touching upon the meaning of each types of inventories and their treatment. So the first one we have is inventories of raw materials. So inventory of raw materials refers to the amount of raw materials that is available for production of goods and services. And regarding its treatment, the opening inventories of raw materials is added and the closing inventories of raw materials is deducted from the purchases. So that is with regard to its treatment, and hope the treatment is made clear to you, because later when we get deeper into cost sheet, we have to know how these items are being treated. So this is for your reminder. That is why we have to know the treatment, especially the treatment is very important. Okay, so that's part one. Number one, that is inventories of raw materials. Then next we have is number two, inventories of work in progress. So inventories of work in progress means this is the inventories of semi-finished goods. This is the inventories of semi-finished goods, or the goods which are in the manufacturing process. We call it as WIP. So regarding its treatment, opening inventories of WIP is added, and closing inventories of WIP is deducted from the factory overhead. You have to know, when I simply say added or deducted, you have to know from which area it has to be deducted. So for now it is inventory of WIP, so it has to be added on factory cost, and the closing inventory has to be deducted from the factory cost or work cost. So this is what I would like to remind you again. When I simply say add and deduct, again you may be confused, but hope I have made it clear now. And the last one we have is inventories of finished goods. Inventories of finished goods refers to the manufacturer's goods which are available for sale. So which means after the production, the goods are now readily available to be sold or to be marketed in the market. So that is what we call it as inventories of finished goods. And the opening inventories of finished goods is added on cost of production. Okay, the result that we have seen in the format of cost sheet. So therefore the opening inventories of FG will be added on the cost of production, while the closing inventories of FG will be deducted from the cost of production to arrive at cost of goods sold. So which means after considering these two items, that is opening balance of FG and closing balance of FG, the result that we will be getting is cost of goods sold. Then accordingly on cost of goods sold, then we add selling and distribution expenses, and then we are going to complete rest of the part. So this is what we have with regard to the types of inventories. Okay, now knowing whatever concept, or after covering whatever concept that is required, and after even looking at the format, then the summary of cost sheet and so on, now okay, let us look at a practical problem. Let us solve the practical problem that I am going to solve using the board here. And first you will go through the question and you will mentally prepare how to deal with that practical problem. So anyway, first I'll just run you through the question. From the following information of Jattu Furniture, prepare cost sheet. So the first item, purchase of raw materials, Newton 20,000, wages 5,000, carriage inward 10,000, factory rents 5,000, lubricants 5,000, and salary to office staffs 10,000, repairs and maintenance of office building Newton 15,000, then we have advertising Newton 2,000, carriage outward 5,000, and finally sales Newton 100,000. So these are the transactions that are given to us in order to prepare cost sheet. So meanwhile I'll just prepare myself to prepare the cost sheet. So meanwhile what you can do is you just go through the question and get mentally prepared where each items should be shown. Hope you all have gone through the question. Now let us get back to the preparation of cost sheet. As I told you, there are certain parts we should not miss out, or it has to be exactly shown, or it should be put it in the cost sheet format as we have already looked at. So anyway, the first we are going to look at is the direct expenses. So from the question there, first item we are going to catch hold of is purchase of raw materials. So we have firstly the purchase of raw materials. Okay, purchase of raw materials given is nil term 20,000. Okay, given is nil term 20,000. So let us keep it in the inner column so that the calculation becomes quite easier. Okay, the first one is that. Okay, the second one you may take that as the direct material. Now the second one we have is the wages of nil term 5,000, and that you may consider it as a direct labor. So which means we have wages of nil term, how much? Nil term 5,000. Okay, and next we have is carriage inward. So carriage inward and carriage outward, you should not be confused again. Carriage inward and carriage outward. Carriage inward is considered as direct expenses, while carriage outward it is related with selling and distribution, so therefore it is considered as the indirect expenses or the overheads which has to be shown under selling and distribution. Okay, so anyway, the next item that we are going to consider is carriage. Okay, carriage inward. Okay, carriage inward. Carriage inward of nil term how much? Carriage inward of nil term 10,000. Okay, so let us get the total of this. We have altogether it is 35. So therefore the sum total of the direct material, direct labor and the direct expenses will be considered as prime cost. Okay, so this is what result we get, and we call this as a prime cost. And on prime cost what we do? On prime cost we add factory overheads. Okay, we add factory overheads. Do we have factory overheads? Yes, we have factory overheads. That is, we have factory rent and lubricants. Lubricants, it is the items which are related with the machine or with the plant. So therefore it has to be also considered as the item of factory overhead. So firstly we have is factory rent. Okay, we have factory rent. Okay, hope you are getting me. Okay, factory rent of how much? We have factory rent of nil term 5,000. Okay, then factory rent is followed by lubricants. Okay, lubricants, we have lubricants of nil term. Okay, again 5,000. Okay, we have only two items, so let us transfer to outer column. So we have altogether of 10,000. So which means 35,000 plus 10,000 we get 45,000. So this 45,000 is what? 45,000 is our factory or work cost. Okay, hope it is clear till this point. Hope you are getting me. Okay, so this is what we have. Now on factory and work cost, what we have? We add. Okay, we add office and. Okay, I'll just keep it short. Okay, office and administrative overheads. Okay, now let us hunt for the items of office and factory overhead. So we have okay, salary to office staff. Obviously it is item of administration. We have repair and maintenance of office building. So firstly we have is salary. Okay, salary to office staff. Okay, salaries to office staff, we have nil term 10,000. Okay, likewise we have repairs and maintenance. Okay, repairs of office building. It is given as nil term 15,000. Okay, hope the amount is correct. Okay, it is nil term 15,000. So all this together it is amounting to nil term 25,000. So which means now the result that we get, okay, 45,000 plus 25,000 is 70,000. Okay, 40, 50, 60 and 70,000. Okay, so this is what we have, and this is what we call it as cost of production. Okay, cost of production. And on cost of production what we add? We add selling and selling and distribution overheads. Okay, we have again two items given for selling and distribution overhead. They are advertising. Okay, we have advertising. The amount given is 2000. Okay, at the same time we have carriage outward. Okay, carriage outward. The amount given is 5,000. Okay, together it is 7,000. Okay, so which means now we got the total of how much? 77,000. And finally we are given with our sales. Okay, before we determine the result, either profit or loss, okay, we are given with sales. Okay, sales, how much we are given with? Sales we are given with 100,000. Okay, now to get the result, either profit or loss, we have to compare sales with that of cost of sales. If cost of sales are greater than sales, then the result is loss. And if sales are greater, or if cost of sales, if it is lesser than sales, then the result is profit. So over here in this solution we can compare. Our sales is 100,000, while the cost of sales is 77,000. So obviously it is a profit, so therefore you just write it as profit. We got the result as profit, so therefore profit is how much? 100,000 minus 77,000. So we are supposed to get 23,000. Hope you are getting 23,000. Okay, so this is how we solve the practical problem of cost sheet. So this is what we had for today, and hope the preparation is made clear to you. So anyway, you just remember there are certain parts. In the first part we get into account all direct material, direct labor and direct expenses, which we call it as a prime cost. And on prime cost we are going to add factory overhead, and the result we get is work cost or factory cost. Then on that we add office and administrative overhead, and the result we get is cost of production. On cost of production we add selling and distribution overhead, and the result we get is cost of sales or total cost. Not the total sales, but it is to be called as total cost. Okay, total cost or cost of sales. Then finally we get the result either profit or loss by comparing the cost of sales or by comparing the total cost or cost of sales with that of sales. So this is what we are going to take into account. And please don't forget all those components. Have to make sure that all components are being reflected under the cost sheet. So this is the preparation of cost sheet, and hope it is made clear to you. Okay, then next we have is the solution which I have for the question here. Okay, we have purchase of material, wages. Okay, we have prime cost, then add factory overheads, then we have work cost, then we have add office and administrative overhead, then we get the result cost of production, selling and distribution overheads, then we get the result as cost of sales, then we have profit, and we have sales. And hope this is clear to you. And if you are a bit confused over here, then what you can do is also you can go through the slides I have prepared for you all. Okay, so with this we are done with the preparation of cost sheet, and hope you will do much better. Well, I have activity for you to practice the preparation of cost sheet. Okay, prepare a cost sheet from the data relating to the manufacture of incense stick. Number of incense stick manufactured during the month of 2018 is 1,000 rolls or 1,000 units. Okay, then direct material consumed 20,000, direct labor 8,000, indirect labor in factory 25,000, factory premises rent 10,000, factory lighting 2,000, depreciation of machinery 1,500, office overheads 8,000, office salaries 5,000, miscellaneous expenses 1,000, selling and distribution expenses 6,000. And you have to take note, a profit margin of 20% on total cost of goods is expected on the sale of incense stick. So which means the 20% of profit you have to calculate on the total cost or the cost of sales that you will be getting. So that's what the idea that I am giving you with regard to the calculation of the profit over here. Okay, hope the question is made clear to you, and if you have any queries you may contact with your subject teacher, or you may also mail me, or you may also ask the queries to me. So with this, okay, we are done with the activity. let us switch on to next. Okay, items excluded from costs. So which means there are certain items given in the question, but you have to know that the items which are not cost, the items which cannot be considered as cost, rather the items of financial nature. All those items which I have mentioned there, they are items of financial nature, so therefore they do not find place in the cost sheet. So which means you have to ignore those if you find these items in the question. So we have okay, cash discount. You already know there are actually two kinds of discount. There are cash discount and trade discount. So cash discount, it is the discount provided to the debtors for the prompt payment. So that's what we call it as cash discount, and cash discount is an item of financial nature, so therefore it should be excluded. We have transfer to reserves, we have donation paid, we have interest paid, we have preliminary expenses written off. Preliminary expenses you already know. To start a business or to give birth to a business concern, initially you have to incur certain expenses, and those expenses we call it as preliminary expenses, and preliminary expenses written off, which means to cancel off or to write off those expenses. Okay, those items will also not be considered as the cost. Okay, we have income tax paid, we have dividend paid, we have provisions for taxation, we have profit or loss on the sale of non-current assets. So these are also items not to be considered as a cost, rather they are considered as the items of financial nature. So for this reason, those items need to be excluded from the cost sheet. So you may be asked question like, okay, why the following items are not included in the cost sheet, and justify. You may have to justify the answer. So this is what I'd like to remind you here. Okay, then the final concept we have for today is the treatment of scribe. You have to know scribe means residual or the leftover. Okay, that may arise out of cutting, out of trimming, out of boarding of metals, timbers, woods and so on. So whatever that is left over, you may not throw it, you may not just leave like that, and whatever left over after the business is being done, we have to again sell it, and the amount that is realized by selling all those scrap has to be deducted from the factory overhead or from the work cost or factory cost. So that is the treatment with regard to the scrap. So any amount realized from the sale of scrap is deducted from the factory overhead. So that is also point to be noted down, because at times you may come across this item and you may not be knowing where to make those treatment, and okay, as I have said, it has to be simply deducted from the factory cost or work cost. With this, I have the next activity for you. Okay, that is the theory. How would you differentiate between prime cost from overhead cost, which I have touched upon time and again. So by now you must be very much clear with or aware with these two concepts, and you should be in position to differentiate prime cost from that of overhead cost. Okay, next, if you want to maximize the profit, what are your suggestions? If you want to maximize, or if you want to enhance, or if you want to increase the profit for a concern, what are your suggestions? You as an accounting student, you as a knowledgeable accounting student, what will be your suggestion? What your means or what measures you are going to take over to enhance or to increase or maximize the profit for a concern? So that's question number 2. And the question number 3 we have is, cost figures in the cost sheet can be manipulated to achieve the desired result. Is it ethical to carry out such practices? At times when the figures do not agree, or when you come across some disagreement in the figures, is it ethical? This question is a value-oriented question. So you have to critically think and you have to answer those questions. Okay, with this I come to the end of this lesson, and hope you all are having a meaningful stay at home just by watching all those lessons. Okay, with this we come to the end. Thank you. Stay safe at home, and please make sure that you learn whatever we present from here. Okay, once again, thank you one and all.